We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Awakening Together's weekly gathering. It's wonderful to be here with you all this morning. Right now I'd like to read our statement of purpose. We are an assembly of equals, joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. The core value I've chosen for today is core value number 3, which is we accept one true self, which is one presence or being, non-dual, without beginning or end, and absolutely changeless. We live this value by practicing letting go of the belief in the individual self as who we are. Out of it. I'd like to. The first song I chose for today is People Are Strange by The Doors. I thought it was strange when this song popped in my head because I hadn't really listened to The Doors since the 90s. But when I listened to the words and watched the video, I understood why it popped into my head. So, Sina, if you can please play our first song. So now I'd like to bring us into prayer. Holy Mother, Father God, I humbly come to you asking for your voice to be my guide. May the light of truth shine upon each and every one mind, joined together in your peace, your love, and your grace. Amen. I'd like now to ask Tina Brown, who is our reader today, to share the readings I selected from NTI.
Thank you, Sina. The first one is NTI Romans chapter 3. Within your mind, reason is confused because you believe all that isn't true. You cannot truly judge at all because you know nothing on which to decide. Your world is a fantasy of beliefs based on experience created through judgment without basis. Again, let's look at its beginning. You ask, what if everything was different than it is? That was important, impossible question, pure fantasy. But then you judged the fantasy as if it was real and decided through judgment that it was. This judgment did not make the unreal real. It only enlivened fantasy within the mind. Then you judged yourself for what you did not do, and you began the expression of guilt. Every option and every judgment that came from this was on an option or judgment based on fantasy. And so it resulted in additional layers of fantasy. Nothing outside fantasy has ever changed. Everything that is still is as it is. You are inside a place that isn't. None of it is true. It has no basis. There is literally nothing there to judge. This world is based on a misperception of guilt, but it is not based on sin. The sin that you judged yourself for was the sin of making what isn't. But what isn't cannot be made. And so you have not sinned. The guilt that you feel and believe and express is all a part of the fantasy. You only feel it and express it because you believe it. But your belief doesn't make it true. God is the knowledge of truth. God is the absence of fantasy. God is forever because truth is forever. And God's truth is within you. Nothing real has ever been lost by imagining something different. Since truth is within you, the way out of fantasy lies within you also. This is the good news for you. To return to your truth, complete and pure and innocent. All you need to do is unweave your way out of fantasy. You reverse the laws that made it by ceasing to play the game. You let go of judgment and all perceived guilt. You no longer believe what isn't true. When that which makes fantasy is let go as a practice, the fantasy begins to fade. As the fantasy fades, the light that is truth shines through. Then you will follow the light to your home, which is back to the awareness of truth without fantasy, which is back to all that is true. Marisol, do I keep reading? Okay. And now I go to John. Okay. John chapter 10. I am the way, and the thoughts that came before were not. You spent many years listening to the thoughts that came before me, and they have given you nothing. I am the way because I am the light, and the light is the way to life. Open to me, listen to me. Tune out other voices by letting go of all other thoughts. The time has come to listen only unto the light. How is it that I am known? I am the light, and so I carry with me the characteristics of the light and only the characteristics of the light. You will not fear in me. You will find only love. You will not find attack and war. You will find only peace. You will not find guilt or accusation. You will find only sweet forgiveness that sees that which is meaningless as meaningless and asks it to take on no meaning. You can trust my voice because you recognize it as yours and you know it as yours. I am the light of which you are. We are one and the same, and you are me. And so you know me, and you recognize your desire to remember me as all that you are. And then Romans chapter 4. O Holy Son of God, there is one thing that you must know. You are loved. You are deeply and truly, eternally treasured and loved. This love that is extended you from God and through God is not extended you for what you do. Therefore, this love cannot be stopped because of what you do not do. Because of what you do not. God's love extended to you is eternal because God's love extended through you is extended for what you are. There are no criteria on which this love is dependent. You are, and so you are loved, and this love is eternal. Existence is love, and love is existence. You are loved because God created you, existence. In creating you, God extended himself. In extending his truth, and which is was enriched further. So in your existence, God himself is enriched. This is why you are his joy. You are his own enrichment. And that which enriches God must be enrichment itself. No part of you is absent from God's enrichment, for every part of you exists. Every part of you is a part of God's joy. every part of you is welcome in the heart and smile of God, because every part of you is his heart and his smile, without exception and without reservation at all. God's love is his promise to you, and God's love is eternal. It cannot be taken back, nor does he will that it be taken back. God himself is grateful to you for your existence, because you are the extension of his own love. And in the extension of his love, he finds his glory, and he calls that glory you.
Thank you, Tina. That was beautifully read. Thank you. So this morning, I'd like to take you on a journey on what total non-acceptance has looked like for me for the past month and a half. First, let me point out that in mid-August, which was not that long ago, I took the Releasing the I Am Bad retreat. During the retreat, there was a huge shift in seeing for me. For the first time, I was truly able to see that everything I was experiencing was coming from within. It was experienced as a miracle. I remember having the thought, oh my God, you mean the responsibility lies in here, not out there? This is wonderful. You mean I can just simply let go of what is causing all my suffering because it's coming from me? It felt like a veil had been lifted from my eyes. And every time suffering crept in, I was able to see exactly where it was coming from, in here, not out there. I was able to see no one had power over me or could force anything on me. I didn't have to wait for someone or something out there to change in order to experience peace. I understood that all misperceptions were being generated from within, and I was able to find the peace I was looking for out there, here within me. During that time, I was easily letting go of anything that would rise up as a cause for suffering. I was in a state of clarity and acceptance, and it all lasted until about the beginning of September, when fear hit hard, really, really hard. And with the fear came total non-acceptance. Non-acceptance of what was happening, of what was rising up to be seen, and for also finding myself again in a state of confusion after the clarity I had just experienced. There were a lot of new changes for me and my family in September, and we all know how much the ego loves change. I had a new part-time job working outside of my home. It had been quite some time since I worked in person with other people. This new experience of working with others every day has been uncovering a lot of hidden beliefs that have been hanging out in the background. At the same time, my children started school again, with my son entering a new school for middle school. This in itself can bring up anxieties and fear, but for me, it was tenfold. My son has an IEP. An IEP is an individualized education plan, for anyone who's not familiar with the term. With him having an IEP meant I needed to meet with a new case manager, a counselor, and a whole group of new teachers. For me, this fact brought up a lot of resentment and non-acceptance. At my son's previous school, it had taken some time, but we had managed to build an amazing relationship with everyone there, working with him, and he was given everything he needed to thrive and do well. I didn't want things to change. On top of everything that was happening, there were also a lot of changes going on with my body, which added to the stress and anxiety I was experiencing. I was experiencing a lot of anger, resentment, and a ton of fear. With my son's new school, I was having to go into all these new relationships that I didn't want to. There were many old programs being triggered and played out because of it. I was able to see everything that was being stirred up by this experience with my son's new school. And what was being stirred up began to build momentum until it became like a herd of wild horses. And once those horses were loose, it felt like almost impossible to rein them in. It felt like there was a part of me somewhere in the distance, sitting in the fields, watching it all play out, and there was nothing I could do about it. The buildup of emotions, thoughts, and judgments all felt very up close and personal. Despite all the buildup, there was an intention here of making these new relationships work and a desire for a peaceful outcome. In the first few weeks of school, the case manager and I were on the same page, and I was grateful for his desire to help. But there are also many teachers involved that needed to follow my son's IEP. My son is in co-teaching classes, which means double the amount of teachers, which means double the amount of personalities, including mine. What began happening was that a few of the teachers began not adhering to my son's IEP. They were continuously failing him for things he was not supposed to be failed on, and he was not receiving the support he needed. I was constantly having to go back and forth, emailing them and the case manager, trying to resolve the issue. Most of it was being met with resistance. I was confused and angry. I mean, really, really angry. I didn't understand the resistance, and it felt like an attack on me and on my son. No matter how many times I would contact the case manager, nothing would get done. I even requested a meeting with my son's entire team, including the teachers, but still nothing had changed. Desperation started to creep in. I prayed and asked for help, but at that point, I was very lost in all that was playing out. I felt completely alone. I watched the experience, one judgment after another, rise up about the whole thing. The mind was frantically scrambling on how to resolve the issue. It came up with so many scenarios and stories about all of them and why they were not helping. What kept me locked in judgment were these thoughts. They are doing this on purpose. They hate you and your son. They don't care. They just care about themselves and want to make it easy for themselves. They don't want to do their job. They don't want to help your son. They are lazy. They are bad. They are wrong. You are their victim. You have to fight. Teach them a lesson. Let them know they are wrong. It's against the law. Every time I would attempt to let go and surrender to something else, the thoughts I just shared would play on loop and would suck me right back in. And at that point, it started to feel like torture. I couldn't find a way out of the loop. I was actively resisting and hating it all, which was keeping it locked in place. During all the interactions with the school, I started becoming aware of something else that was stirring underneath and causing confusion. I became aware of the desire to be liked and accepted playing out. Something here wanted to fight to no end, but there was something else that was afraid of the rejection that would come from it. It was scared of not being liked. It didn't want to offend or ruffle feathers. Needless to say, I was not in a good place. Apart from the ongoing issues with my son's school, there was also a lot going on at home and within me. I felt increasingly backed into a corner. I remember telling my husband, my mother, and my best friend that I thought I was having a nervous breakdown and that I could not take any more disappointment. There was a desperation for it all to stop. It felt like an endless loop of one door closing after another with a big fat no written on it. No, we won't abide by your child's IEP and give him what he needs. No, we won't replace the damaged carpet you just purchased. No, your dog won't learn how to behave around other dogs during dog training class. No, your body won't get better. It was a long list of no's, and I felt like I was sinking in this never-ending loop. With all of this, there was so much discomfort, pain, and suffering. But I did notice something different. There was something different happening with the experience of all the pain. I was not going to my familiar vices for escape. Something here knew there was nowhere to hide, and I needed to be with all of it. Something here knew this all needed to be experienced as is, no matter how painful it all was. I wasn't happy about it, but I knew escaping was not an option. There was deep anger and resentment coming up, and when the mind became tired of blaming everyone else, it turned to its old pattern of blaming God. God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you allowing all of this? Don't you care about me and my family? When mind turned its attention on blaming God, well, then it believed the whole universe was out to get Marisol. With that came the old familiar beliefs in rejection, abandonment, and not being loved. They started bubbling up and taking over everything I saw. They were front and center. All I could see in everyone's faces was rejection and hatred. The mind was focused on what it believed to be true and saw it in everything it looked on. Everything seemed distorted and everything felt separate again. There was anger and resentment towards everyone and everything I looked on. I felt alone in a big bad world that was against me. Once I came out the other side of all this and reflected back, the first song that I shared from the Doors popped in my head. I saw how perfectly the song described everything I had been experiencing for the past month and a half. People look strange when you're a stranger, when you're alone. It's exactly how I was experiencing the world, feeling like a stranger, feeling left out, and feeling alone. There was non-acceptance and hatred towards everything that was being experienced. It was a total non-acceptance to everything that was happening out there and everything that was happening in me. All the fears, anger, and judgments being played out in me were all being met with judgment and resistance. It got so bad that I remember the spiritual ego kicking in and taking hold of the situation of my son's school, telling me I was not spiritual if I spoke up and did what needed to get done to get the situation resolved. I needed to rely on God to take care of everything and do absolutely nothing. And when I had moments that I was paralyzed by fear and I wasn't doing anything, then the ego believed I was terrible for not doing anything about the situation. So I was wrong no matter what, according to the ego's logic. Thankfully, it didn't take long for me to see the insanity of that thought system, and I was able to let that one go. But during the height of the inner storm, I remember asking myself and God if joy was even possible for me. I hit what felt like the lowest point during all of this experience. And I guess it was rock bottom with it all and what felt at the moment as a numbing out. I sat and decided to watch a Disney movie, a happy feel-good movie. Something in here had grown tired of all the crap and was looking for something else. And what I thought at the moment as a desire to numb out, I see now was really a desire to rest and just be. There was something within that grew tired of all the non-acceptance. I remember crying and crying when I watched one of the characters in the movie have a joyous moment. I remember thinking, there's no joy for Marisol, woe is me. But now what I see that was actually happening was that there was a desire rising up to see through something else. What all had been playing out for quite a long time was coming to its natural end. A tiny bit of light started creeping in. Something here knew there had to be a better way. Something finally surrendered and stopped fighting what is. When I surrendered, a desire rose up, or better yet, a prayer. It was, God, please help me be happy and at peace, no matter what happens in the world and with whatever happens to me. Even if things don't go the way I think they should at my son's school, I choose to trust in you no matter what. I choose to never believe that your love for me is not here when things don't go as I would like them to go. I want to stand firm in your love, always, no matter what the mind tells me. I desire to know your love is constant, no matter the circumstance, no matter what. With that seeing, I was able to see the patterns of rejection and feeling unloved that had been playing out frequently. All of it was always being met with a confused desire to fill an empty hole within with love and acceptance from out there, from another. It believed something or someone out there held what it believed it needed. And with that realization, this prayer rose up. All I need to know in life, Holy Mother, is that I am completely and utterly loved and accepted by you. Sorry. This is all I need. This is all I welcome in my heart. Please, Mother, show me your love and acceptance. After I said that prayer, I was led to Romans chapter 4, which I'll read a little bit of it, which reads, O Holy Son of God, there is one thing you must know. You are loved. You are deeply and truly, eternally treasured and loved. This love that is extended you from God and through God is not extended you for what you do. Therefore, this love cannot be stopped because of what you do not. God's love extended to you is eternal because God's love extended through you is extended for what you are. There are no criteria on which this love is dependent. You are, and so you are loved, and this love is eternal. I didn't think I would start crying, so I didn't even have tissues here. So with that seeing, every time the old desire for love out there would rise up, I would remind myself, all I need is God's love, and I already have it. As long as I know I am loved by God, it's all okay. It doesn't matter if I'm not part of the group. It doesn't matter if I'm treated badly or rejected or things don't go my way. All the love I need is already here within. I don't need it from out there. I am already accepted. With this acknowledgement, there is a softening and a quiet confidence that rises up, which had not been experienced before. Truly, I can trust that I am loved. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but despite all the pain I recently experienced, I would actually go through all of it again if it meant it would bring me to a place where I would finally start to fully welcome the love God has for me and to stand firmly in that love, knowing it cannot be found anywhere else. Sorry. But within. Light had opened my heart, but I still found myself in the midst of all that was happening with my son's school. I had a meeting set up with the case manager and counselor to come to a resolution. I said a prayer before going into the meeting. I choose to sit in peace and confidence and do what it is for me to do for my son. Fill me with your truth, peace, and wisdom. May I act only through peace and truth and what is needed now. May all past be removed from this meeting. Amen. The feelings of fear were huge before going into the meeting, but mostly it was fear of ego taking over and things going badly. I accepted the fear, and I also accepted the love that was present, and I chose to trust in God's love and whatever the outcome would be. I'm happy to say that despite all the fear, God calmed my heart and I spoke what was to be said in peace and in truth. And in the end, it was a peaceful outcome, and we were all happy with the decision that was made. When I walked out of that meeting, I felt this huge sense of release. Later during the day, I watched one of my all-time favorite movies, which is A Nightmare Before Christmas. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. And when the scene with the song, What's This, came on, I knew I had to share it today during my homily. I know it's unconventional, and of course, with that, the ego kicked in, telling me it was a terrible idea and what would everyone think, but I quickly let that one go. It just described beautifully what it felt like for me coming out of the ego nightmare I had experienced. And I love the joy that Jackie Skeleton experiences with his discovery of Christmastown. And with that, I would like to ask Sina to play our second song I chose, which is What's This, from A Nightmare Before Christmas. But before Sina plays the song, I would like to remind everyone that you can donate to Awakening Together by clicking on the link Sina will post, or by using the QR code in the sanctuary. Thank you, Sina, for playing that. I love that song. It's so great. Now, if we have some time, we have plenty of time. If anyone would like to share, please raise your hand. I see Beverly has her hand up. Go ahead, Beverly.
Hi, Marisol. Oh my God. This is just amazing, amazing. You really brought me back because I going through a lot with my daughter. Different, but I could so remember what you were saying, the paralysis and the vigilance, and then the paralysis and swinging back and forth, and just the despair, and just being in that dark place and being the loneliness, you know, when you play the song, and it's when you're in that place that you feel most separate and you feel most alone. And I was like, you know, kind of looking back at that time, but also looking at how there's no more profound spiritual teacher than my experience with my daughter. And when you said you would do it all over again, I was like, I would do it all over again. You know, there's some energy where I am still doing it, and you know, I can see that this experience is here to heal me, and it's so perfectly orchestrated for my healing. I'm so grateful, and I thank you for sharing and being so open and authentic. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. That was beautiful. Just beautiful. There's nothing like your child to kind of bring you to your knees. Definitely. Beautiful, Beverly. Thank you. Hi, Regina. I see you have your hand up.
Hello. Yeah, that was a beautiful, authentic sharing. Thank you so much. A couple things come to mind. One is, once upon a time, I don't even remember who this was. There was some person that certainly had a not only doubt, but judgments against our spirituality, thought it was just plain wrong. And that person asked me, said, yeah, well, what would you do if you were kidnapped by, I think it was ISIS at the time? What would you do if you were kidnapped by ISIS and tortured? You know, what's your spirituality going to do for you then? And my response was, you know, I don't know what it would be like for me if I was kidnapped by ISIS and tortured. And I said, but I would hope that I would just go deeper and deeper into my spirituality, you know, and unfortunately, there are people who are kidnapped and tortured. We're seeing that happening, you know, possibly right now. But we, you know, we all have our things, you know, whatever they are. We all have our things. The world, I think Adyashanti said something about life in the world, said there's only two things that are certain in a lifetime, and that's death and tragedy. It also says in NTI Hebrews somewhere that, you know, everything that Jesus went through, we will also go through in our own way. You know, not crucifixion, of course, hopefully not being kidnapped and tortured. But there's stuff that's going to happen that's going to try us as much as we can be tried. And so that this person, this doubter that asked, you know, what would you do if, you know, I mean, that's worth thinking about. When it gets tough in our life, in whatever way it's going to get tough, what are we going to do? Are we going to abandon our spirituality? Or are we going to use those opportunities to go deeper into it? Right? Because those are the only two choices. There's not another one. You know, and what we saw Jesus do the night that he was arrested and beaten and all of that, we saw Jesus go deeper into his spirituality. You know, if you read just the regular New Testament, you don't even have to read NTI. Read the New Testament that night in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus was terrified. He was terrified. It's very clear. And yet he turned it all over to his Father. You know, he surrendered completely. He went deeper into his spirituality when that happened. And that's what I hear that you did. And that's why you say you would do it all over again, because there's something so rewarding about this truth that we are exploring and realizing that anything that makes us go deeper into it is miraculous in its own way. So I'm crying too now, but I just want to thank you for sharing so authentically. And Beverly, I want to thank you for speaking up and validating from your own experience everything that Marisol has shared. And I just want to say, you know, also I spent a day with Michael Langford once, and Michael Langford was kind of joking about the spiritual students who think it's all peace and love and joy. You know, not that perfect happiness isn't what we receive at the end of the road, but the path itself, it's not all peace and love and joy. That tragedy, you know, that whatever way that we're going to be tested, it happens. And we all need to ask ourselves, when it happens, what am I going to do? And like I told that man who asked me that question, I don't know what I'll do, but I hope that I'll just go deeper into my spirituality. Thank you, Marisol. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Regina. That was great. Yeah, terror was pretty much, that's the perfect word to describe what was happening. A lot of terror. So I don't see any more hands up. So I'm going to ask Sina if you could play the last song that I chose. The last song that I chose is Goodness of God by CC Winans. And the song just says it all for me. So if you can please play that song, Sina. Thank you. Oh my, that's just takes my breath away. I see Regina has her hand up. Go ahead, Regina.
Yeah, I apologize for raising my hand again, but that song, you know, that song was gorgeous. And I'll tell you what that song reminded me of following your homily was the book of Job, you know, chapter 1 in Job in the Bible, you know, where everything was taken away from Job. I don't know if you know that story. You know, his possessions, his family, his health, everything was taken away from Job. And yet he did what she did. He kept singing the praises of God. You know, like nothing could keep him away from the goodness of God, from the love of God in his heart. And I don't know, that's what this is all about, that we're not, it's not just that does God love us, it's also, do we love God? And are we only going to love God when all the conditions are just right in our life? Or are we going to love God no matter what? And it's through loving God no matter what that we discover how much we are actually loved. So thank you again. I mean, everything. And by the way, your Nightmare Before Christmas song was also perfect. The ego is so crazy telling you that it wasn't. Thank you for everything, Marisol. I really feel inspired. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. That's great. Yeah, that was the one thing that I really got through this whole experience. I finally learned that I don't need to put conditions on God, or things don't have to go the way I think they need to go in order for me to continuously trust and love God. And that desire just sprang up inside of me. I'm so, so grateful for that. I see Laura Joy, you have your hand up. Go ahead. Go ahead, Joy.
Hi, thanks, Marisol. What an incredible sharing. I'm on a computer. There we go. Yes, I have to show my little RAT friend, rest, accept, and trust. And it just brought to mind the story, you know, just that everything is either love or a call for love. And that is everybody always involved in that. I come from a teacher raised me who like barely got any sleep because she was so dedicated to giving her students the absolute best she possibly could. And but it also reminded me of when I discovered Peace Pilgrim. I love the parallels here. And I was so inspired to do what she did in terms of walking across the country and the love and the peace. But I was putting it off like years and years and years and years. And finally I had a dream in 2015 that a little boy was abusing my dog, and I knew in my heart that that was not who he was. And I just went up to him in the dream and took his shoulders, and I was just like, you are love, you are perfect, you are perfect, you are perfect, and his eyes were going all over the place. And finally he started to track, my eyes, and there was more to that dream. It was like spirit just showed me scene after scene of why you have to do this, because you get it, you understand, as everyone in this community and so many places around the world, and understand that everything is either love or a call for love, and what the true message of forgiveness was, and then to hold each other's hands as we go through these very uncertain feeling situations and wanting the best for our beloveds. So I just want to say thank you for such a beautiful open sharing, and may we still continue to know that everything is love or call for love. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. That was beautiful. So I guess that brings us to the end. If no one else has anything else to share, brings us to the end of our weekly gathering. I thank you all for being here and for being a part of this. And I love you all. Thanks. I hand it over to Sina.
Been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.